Rebirth. I made a fortune by relying on the poster of my master. Introduction. www.zhaozuiyuan.com. Chen Wen struggled until the age of 30, spent a lot of money marrying a woman, but ended up misbehaving. Frugal for most of my life, rolled up to the point where my liver is shattered, but what about my family property? But what about the child? But what about parents? Half a life is absurd. Chen Wen has nothing. In desperation, Chen Wen returned to the age of 18, just the first day of college. That one who listens to cicadas chirping. https://www.zhaozuiyuan.com. Chapter 1. For Child Identification. Non-biological, I will be 2 gold 2 wind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Aerial World, some timelines and settings are different from reality. Please do not delve deeper. Outside the window, I don't know when a drizzle started to fall. Lu Yingying, do you have anything else to say? Chen Wen angrily threw a file bag in front of the woman across from him, his voice low and his eyes red, suppressing his anger. We have been married for 15 years and have given birth to 4 children, none of which are my own. Bang! The file bag fell onto the coffee table and made a loud noise. Chen Wen, what are you really going to do? Have you had enough trouble? The 2 children are still lying in the hospital, but you are still struggling whether they are biological. Do you still have human nature? The woman across from her, about 40 years old, painted a delicate makeup, crossed her legs, squinted her red phoenix triangular eyes, and glared hard at Chen Wen. The matter has come to an end. What else can you do? Besides, is it really important for the child to be with you? They all call you Dad, isn't that enough? Isn't it really important not to call me Dad? You're the only disgusting woman who can say such things. Chen Wen sneered, his face pale and devoid of any blood. He was 1.85 meters tall, but now he looked a bit bleak and decadent. If it weren't for an accident this time, the Public Security Bureau would have required him to provide proof of parenthood for his 4 children, and he would have gone for a paternity test, but he wouldn't have known about it. Surprisingly, all 4 children have no blood relationship with themselves. He felt his skies suddenly darken and looked up ahead, his vision blurred. The autumn wind blew by, and the 4 report forms in his hands, like his efforts in the first half of his life, drifted down with the wind. Divorce it. Lying back in the chair, Chen Wen closed his eyes and said this sentence in the most plain tone. He is tired and doesn't want to have any further involvement with this woman. Leave. Anyway, if you divorce me now, you won't get a penny, humph. Upon hearing Chen Wen mention her divorce, Lu Yingying from across the street sneered and looked at Chen Wen with a contemptuous expression. I have run out of money at home, and I have already sold my house and car. Lu Yingying's words were like the last straw that overwhelmed the camel, cutting through Chen Wen's heart like a knife. Why? Looking up at Lu Yingying on the opposite side, Chen Wen's eyes were red, swollen, and blood was about to burst out. Chen Wen was jealous. He didn't understand that as a senior executive in the internet industry, his annual salary was several million yuan a year, and he was also very kind to this woman. Why does she still cheat, not even keeping a child for herself? Tick by tick. The light rain outside the window is pattering, and the wind is howling. Married for over 10 years, gave birth to 4 children, but none of them were his own. Chen Wen felt dizzy and about to crack, as if the whole world had collapsed, with no other thoughts left. Now, he also understands that Lu Yingying has been dragging on these days, also to transfer the last bit of assets. This woman doesn't want to leave anything for Chen Wen. However, he doesn't want to go find a lawyer anymore. Sorrow is greater than death of heart. For him, a lonely person, nothing is meaningful now. Opening the door, Chen Wen walked slowly towards the outside. The originally slightly muscular figure now looks very thin, and as we walk, a pale sense of powerlessness arises. Remember to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow morning and apply for a divorce certificate. Lu Yingying's indifferent voice came from behind, and Chen Wen almost stumbled and fell to the ground. Step out of the room. It's already late at night outside, and the sky is getting darker and darker. In this quiet night, the wind roars wildly with its madness. Boss, 2 bottles of 52-degree Nulanchen Erguotu. Unconsciously, Chen Wen walked into a convenience store and ordered 2 bottles of liquor. It rained heavily. The night wind roars fiercely. Chen Wen walked aimlessly up the street, holding 2 wine bottles that had already bottomed out. Bang dang. Chen Wen, who was stumbling, stopped and the wine bottle in his hand fell to the ground, making 2 noises. A strong wind blew by, and Chen Wen, who was already crooked when he stood up, was directly blown to the ground. His eyes turned black, and he felt his head on a sharp stone by the roadside. In an instant, fresh blood flowed, and the thick and vibrant blood dyed the surrounding area bright red. Washed by rainstorm. Not only are the blood stains around Chen Wen's head gradually blurring, but his consciousness is also gradually blurring and sinking. Consciousness gradually sinks, and the soul seems to be losing as well. Gradually, Chen Wen closed his eyes and fell into the rain and blood. My head hurts so much. Did I get drunk last night? Chen Wen felt his head dizzy and heavy, and he hugged his head with both hands, feeling a bit uncomfortable. In a daze, Chen Wen vaguely remembered that he seemed to have drunk a lot of alcohol last night. He doesn't want it either. But in that situation, his heart was already dead and he just wanted to numb it with alcohol. Sigh. With great effort, Chen Wen opened his eyes and let out a long sigh. After decades of hard work, he achieved half of his small goal in the family business. In the end, he became a lonely and wild ghost. There are no parents above and no young children below. Staring at the lime-paved ceiling with a few cracks, Chen Wen was stunned for a while. After finally regaining his senses, he felt a wave of confusion and remembered that he had fainted while drinking on the street in the middle of the night yesterday. He can't remember what happened afterwards. I should have been saved by a kind-hearted person now, in the hospital. But it feels strange here, not like a hospital, but rather like someone's home. I took a deep sniff twice. Chen Wen did not smell the unique smell of disinfectant in the hospital. On the contrary, there is an indescribable warmth. Where is this? Chen Wen looked around at the environment, his eyes full of confusion. He now felt very confused. Looking around, the wall with Zhang Jie's poster attached still vaguely shows some mottled lime on it, not so white. Jia, on a bedside table made of a 3-legged stool, there is an old but clean-looking small electric fan. Underneath the fan are several books, and from the side, it appears to be the green A. version of 5-year college entrance examination 3-year simulation. Here. Chen Wen glanced around and felt very familiar with it, but couldn't remember it for a while. However, for some reason, a hint of restlessness suddenly rose in his heart, and his entire mood became restless. Perhaps this place is too outdated. Old as if in his memory. Chen Wen. In a daze, Chen Wen seemed to hear someone calling him. Chen Wen, have you ordered it yet? I made you a glass of honey water. Would you like to drink it? I didn't hear it wrong. The gentle female voice just now continued to say something. Next up. With a creak, the dilapidated door opened. Chen Wen wrapped himself in a blanket and suddenly stood up, looking at the door that was opening. Are you? Before he could finish speaking, Chen Wen was shocked by the scene before him. A middle-aged woman wearing a large red printed apron and a vintage T-shirt with the words, BJ Cheer, on it, paired with plain black pants, with a few freckles on her face, pushed open the door and walked in with her hair coiled. Mom! Chen Wen was slightly stunned for a moment and instinctively called out. He was a bit unsure, as he remembered that his mother and father had both passed away for a long time. This can't be a dream, can it be heaven? I told you to drink so much alcohol yesterday, but I know you're not feeling well today. Let's see if you'll drink again next time. Seeing her son's uncomfortable appearance, Chen Wen's mother Chen Li felt a bit uncomfortable, but she still said a few words to Chen Wen. As she spoke, she handed the cup of honey water specially brewed for Chen Wen to him. Mom, is it really you? Chen Wen's voice trembled slightly. Everything here is so real, but he's afraid it's just a dream. When waking up from a dream, the mother will suddenly disappear and the dream will shatter again. Ah. What do you mean? I just finished my college entrance exam yesterday and came back drunk from going out tonight. The next day, I don't recognize my mother anymore, do I? Upon hearing Chen Wen's questioning, a hint of displeasure appeared on Chen Li's face. She crossed her waist with both hands and said rudely to Chen Wen. I don't want your summer allowance anymore, do you? Listening to the familiar tone that had appeared countless times in his memory, Chen Wen felt guilty and uneasy, very excited, and his eyes were filled with joy. Mom! Oh, you still know my mother, recognize me as my mother, and went out to drink so much alcohol yesterday. Oh my, Chen Wen said coquettishly. He has regained his senses and still needs to coax his mother in his old style. Otherwise, if you accidentally make your mother angry, it's all over. Chen Wengang just remembered that he had just finished his college entrance exam yesterday and was very excited. In the evening, he went out to a bar called Jiuzang with a few friends to drink. He still vaguely remembers drinking 20 or 30 bottles of sparkling beer from the bar last night, and half of the cola bucket also entered his stomach. The drink was so dim that in the end, the road became unstable, and it was my father Chen Chuan who went to pick me up. As soon as he thought of this, Chen Wen couldn't help but smile awkwardly and say, Mom, you've already told me that was yesterday. Today is a new day, so don't worry. Will you go next time? Chen's mother glared at Chen Wen and asked with a stern expression. I dare not, I dare not. Chen Wen reacted and quickly said. Just kidding, if he dares to say one more word at this time, he might become the first person to be beaten after the age of 18. He is aware of his mother's temper. Moreover, when asked these words, the mother only wanted to seek comfort in her heart and didn't want to see her son feel so uncomfortable again. Then hurry up and get ready for lunch. After speaking, Mother Chen Li went out. Chen Wen also picked up the cup of honey water from maternal love, lowered his head, and silently drank it. After drinking, Chen Wen went for a simple wash. Subsequently, opening the wardrobe, Chen Wen's dusty memories suddenly surged out. The one hanging on the top is his previous favorite white shirt and the sky blue jeans. This outfit is the most worn by him during his student days, and it is also the deepest memory buried in his memory. This is all his youth. Flowers bloom again, but no one is young again. Once upon a time. He. Chen Wen. It also exudes a youthful and scholarly vibe. I don't know when, but he no longer had the youthful energy that belonged exclusively to him. Stripped off the innocence of the young man's face, as if it were a pearl. Becoming bloated, slippery-tongued, and becoming the kind of person I looked down upon the most when I was a child. Chen Wen's eyes were tense, and his fingers tightly grasped the white shirt before his eyes, feeling the faint scent of lavender on it. I seemed to have returned to the past, the summer full of youthful hormone breath. Bowl and bowl chicken, outside the window, the sound of vendors selling along the street came through. Open the curtains. A ray of scorching noon sunlight shone in and hit the windowsill, forming the Tyndall effect. The flying dust raised was clearly visible in the sunlight. Zhaozuiyuan.com. Looking up at the scorching sun above, Chen Wen felt infinite emotions in his heart. In his previous life, during his school years, he liked to hang out with girls everywhere, but unfortunately, he didn't pay attention to his studies. In his 20s, after understanding some truths and experiencing the bitterness of not having money, he chose his career and forgot to eat and sleep, without achieving much success. Finally, Lin Wei, in his 30s, barely made some progress in his career. It was only through blind dates that he met Lu Yueying, and he was even wearing a green hat. After years of hard work, he had no family around him, his 4 children were not biological, and his parents had left him by accident before he even rose to power, without asking him to repay his upbringing. My mind is full of thoughts, and I don't know how to draw for a moment. Suddenly, a sharp and long cry sounded, like a sharp sword cutting through the sky, piercing through the clouds, high and extremely penetrating, shaking people's hearts. Following the sound, Chen Wen looked over. Under the scorching sun, an eagle flapped its wings and flew high, breaking through the sky as if competing with the scorching sun. Above the clouds, it soars freely, with a graceful posture, like a lightning bolt piercing through the sky. The sunlight fell on the eagle, its feathers shining brightly, shimmering with golden light. Its wings spread out like a huge screen, blocking some sunlight and casting mottled shadows. This is the wild romance exclusive to men. Since I have been reborn for a lifetime, why can't I fly high like it? The young man was dressed in plain clothes and his eyes looked into the distance. The light and shadow swayed, reflecting on his body, emitting a golden light. Birds and sparrows spin low, how can they know the vastness of heaven and earth? Eagles soaring in the 9 heavens reveals the vastness of the universe. Chapter 2. Rebirth Step 1. Of course, it's about making money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, opening your eyes is dazzling sunshine, the sky is azure and cloudless. Standing in front of the window, Chen Wen's eyes were full of confusion and curiosity. He is somewhat unfamiliar with this relatively small county town of Qingshui County. Smelling the smoke and fireworks emanating from the air, and listening to the high-pitched horns selling groceries downstairs, Chen Wen felt a bit uncomfortable. 20 years ago, the fireworks in the small town made him, a migrant worker who had become accustomed to staying in the big city, feel like he had passed away. After entering university, Chen Wen stayed in the city where he studied for the sake of his career, only returning home every year to visit his parents during the Chinese New Year. Coming and going in a hurry, I didn't care about the development of this small town. But what did the so-called struggle come up with? A self-deprecating smile appeared on Chen Wen's face, realizing that the most precious 20 years of his past life had been wasted in vain. Putting his hand into his pocket, Chen Wen habitually wanted to take out a pack of cigarettes, but he emptied it and only took out a yellow-green napkin that emitted the aroma of camellia. That's right, I haven't learned how to smoke yet at this time. In my past life, I also smoked cigarettes due to excessive work pressure, mental depression, and the desire to relieve fatigue. Thinking of this, Chen Wen wished he could slap himself twice. I didn't study computer science seriously in college, which resulted in me going to a small company after graduation. Not only is the salary not as high as that of large factories, but there are also more things to do than large factories. In order to help his boss catch up on projects, he often stayed up late and worked overtime. In the end, he didn't make any money, but instead suffered from injuries and illnesses. He was also wearing a shocking green hat by his wife whom he met on a blind date. Ha! I want to buy osmanthus and carry wine, but in the end, it's different. Youth tour. What's the meaning of this kind of life? Life shouldn't be like this. Life should be a free wilderness, not a constrained track. Chen Wen's lips curved into a smile, and seeing the soaring eagle in the sky, he already had thoughts in his heart. There are countless summers in life, but only one youth. The first step in being reborn is, of course, to make money. As for how to start earning his first bucket of gold, Chen Wen has no idea yet. He plans to observe for 2 days first. After all, he doesn't have any money right now, and he can't get any startup funds to do anything. Before his rebirth, he did not deliberately remember the lottery numbers for each episode. Moreover, even if he remembered, it was basically impossible for him to win the jackpot. You should know that even if the number of the recipient changes, the recipient will not change. Buying stocks is not easy either. Although he had some knowledge about it during his college years to earn some money, he is now penniless and has no place to raise funds. As for playing virtual currency, he only knows about Bitcoin and Musk's Dogecoin, both of which have not yet been released, and he doesn't know about other currencies either. Buying a house, buying land, and working as a chartered public servant is even more unrealistic, as there are no connections, or money involved. The gear shift at the fish stall where my uncle and aunt run seems to have been demolished this summer, and the prices offered are not bad. The entire vegetable market seems to have been demolished and a new bus station has been built. Supporting his forehead, Chen Wen silently thought in his heart. But where should my first bucket of gold come from? Chen Wen has made a mistake and now he has a pale sense of powerlessness. There is nothing I can do to make a profit from having a treasure trove, even though I know how to do it. However, I lack this first capital. Sigh. Speaking of which, I didn't even have a system. After waiting for a long time, Chen Wen didn't even hear the wonderful ding sound in his ear. I'm still playing with a hammer. Chen Wen feels a bit sore. He has countless ideas about the economy of this era, and last year, after the financial crisis, the entire market was at a historic low, making it a good time to take a bottom. But he, without money, is really a hero who cannot be defeated by a penny. At the same time, it's like being together. I prefer flamenco's passion, and you fall in love. A song with a certain sense of era came, interrupting Chen Wen's contemplation. Is this my phone ringing? Chen Wen has some doubts and cannot be too certain. Looking back, Chen Wen saw from the sound that the phone placed on the dilapidated small stool and bedside table was shaking. This phone is an adult gift from his parents, an old phone from the second-hand market, and it works quite well. Chen Wen walked over and picked up the phone with a hint of nostalgia. Caller. Zhou Daxiong, Zhou Daxiong. Chen Wen felt a bit puzzled, as it seemed that the name had been heard somewhere before. I was thinking that his hand movements were not slow either. Press the receiver, and in the next moment, a somewhat rough sound comes. Chenggu, where have you been? We have already arrived. We will wait for you at Zhoushan Park later. Come quickly. The voice was very urgent, as if it was already impatient. It's him. Chen Wen finally remembered. Zhou Daxiong, a good friend who grew up playing since childhood, has been in the same school and class all these years, and he often had contact during his college years. However, after working, Zhou Daxiong returned to his hometown of Qingshui County, and Chen Wen stayed in Shi City. After this farewell, the two of them started to gather less and leave more. After Chen Wen's parents passed away in an accident, they rarely returned to Qingshui County. By the way, they haven't seen each other for almost a decade. At this moment, upon hearing his voice, Chen Wen was still surprised and a smile appeared on his face. Okay, I'm on my way, I'm almost there. Okay, we'll wait for you. Su Mengjie is also here. Come on, I'll hang up first. Okay. Another person's name appeared on the other end of the phone. Chen Wen is not unfamiliar with this name at all, on the contrary, he still remembers it vividly. Even at the age of over 40 or almost 50 in his past life, the three words Su Mengjie are as if imprinted in his memory, unforgettable for a long time. Su Mengjie is his first love and also the girl he feels the most sorry for. In their past lives, they had feelings for each other in high school and have always been very ambiguous. It seems that today, they officially established a relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend, and the girl expressed her innocence. At that time, the carriage and horse were slow, and the two of them loved each other, thinking that the days ahead would be so plain and indifferent. Two people can get married, have children, and have fun together. However, time is the witness of everything, and it can also change everything. Later, just as the two were inseparable and unable to part ways, it was time for the start of the school year to visit zhaozuiyuan.com. So the two parted ways, but still promised each other not to forget each other. They cheered together and spent 4 years in this remote place. But after entering university, due to Chen Wen's handsome appearance and clean appearance, he attracted a large number of black silk senior sisters. Chaotic flowers are gradually becoming charming. At first, Chen Wen was able to hold on to his true intention, but later on, he directly fell into the trap and turned Su Mengjie, who had always loved him deeply, green. Not to mention that, he even kept it from Su Mengjie. Until one day, the girls' school took a break and made a special trip from Linchuan to Shiyi City to visit him. As a result, it was discovered that he was kissing another girl. In a fit of anger, he ran over to confront him and wanted to give Chen Wen a chance. However, at that time, Chen Wen had already been completely lost by the black silk senior sisters from several nearby schools. How could he listen to her? So the two parted ways unhappily. Later on, it was already after college, and when Chen Wen realized that the girl was good to him, he wanted to find her again. I only realized that the two had already cut off contact, and it wasn't until later, after some inquiries, that I found out that the girl had gone abroad and hadn't returned for a long time. When we met again, the girl was still Xiren, and he, Chen Wen, was already the father of 2 children. Time changes, things change and people change. When we met again, we only left tears of regret and lost youth. At that moment, there was no more light in the girl's eyes. A gentle breeze blew by, and under the sunshine, the girl turned around and a crystal shone brightly. "Let's go, Zhoushan Park." Chen Wen picked up his crossbody bag, tidied up his hair a bit, and walked towards the door. Chapter 3. If a scholar is like a rainbow, he will know when he meets someone above. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, coming out, here is the pocket money prepared for you. Save some money. This is for your summer vacation, don't spend it all in one day. Mother Chen Li saw Chen Wen come out and had already packed up, knowing that he was going out. Coming out of the kitchen, she took out 10 red tickets directly from her bag and handed them to Chen Wen, speaking earnestly. This was decided by her and her father Chen Wei together. As the child grew older and had just finished the college entrance examination, there were still many places to spend money. Previously, it was just a joke to say that confiscating his summer allowance was a typical case of a sharp-tongued tofu heart. "Thank you, Mom. I will save some flowers." Chen Wen's eyes were covered in mist, and he choked up a bit as he tightly grasped the money he had just taken in his hand. Their family doesn't have much money, but over the years, their parents have never let him suffer any hardship. Only those related to learning or reasonable expenses, even if they are frugal, will satisfy him and have not mistreated him. But he has always been living aimlessly, without giving his parents anything in return. Finally, the prodigal son turned around and achieved some success in his career. However, helplessly, the son wanted to raise him, but his parents left him due to an accident. Warm tears flowed down my cheeks, and the warmth of home remained the same. On the balcony, through the clear screen window, a breeze blew in. The gentle breeze brushed against Chen Li's cheeks and curled up the ends of her forehead. Chen Wen saw that his mother, who was still in her 30s, had already wrinkles on her forehead, and his heart was even more sour. "Mom, I have grown up and will be sensible in the future. I will earn a lot of money and show filial piety to you and Dad." A lump choked up on his nose, and Chen Wen said anxiously. Looking up, Chen Wen stared closely at his mother. He felt like he couldn't see enough, not even enough. At this moment, he realized that he had not taken a good look at his mother for a long time. "Mom, you plan to become the mother of national entrepreneurs in the future." Chen Wen burst into tears and started laughing with his mother. "It's really wonderful to suddenly see my parents so young. Perhaps this is the feeling of having a family who loves me. Congratulations to you first, the future chairman." Although it's a bit strange, Chun-Li is still very happy. She is still very important in her son's heart. In that case, the future chairman needs to study hard and not run to internet cafes all day long. Upon hearing this, Chen-Wen scratched his head and a slight embarrassment appeared on his face. But my heart is still warm, and the warmth of my family cannot be replaced by anything. Having a family member who doesn't disappoint and can provide positive feedback at any time is really important in life. He remembered that when he was young, he loved playing games very much. I went to study computer science in college because I enjoy playing games. If he didn't enjoy going to internet cafes as much during high school, he would still have no problem going to a better 985 university. No, just like before, I only attended one not-so-good 211, then I'll set off. Standing at the door, Chen-Wen pushed open the thick, faded black door and turned around to say something to his mother Chun-Li. Coincidentally, Chun-Li was also watching him go out. The scorching summer sun at noon is intimidating, but the enthusiasm of young people is purer than that. Chen-Wen rode his bike out and soon arrived at Zhoushan Park. Although it is a park here, in fact, not far away is the only pedestrian street in Qingshui County. Yun Street. Before the urban management, it was always chaotic here, with vendors competing for positions and often blocking the roads, preventing pedestrians from passing through. Over time, only a few people strolled here, and most chose to play in the nearby Zhoushan Park. Tired of playing, through the fence, look for those small vendors to buy things and have them pass them in. In this way, congested streets and endless crowds can be avoided. However, after 2 years of urban management renovation, it will be much better. Now, let's think about it, there's a different kind of fun. Of course, watching the bustling pedestrian street, Chen-Wen would steadfastly choose to go to the nearby Zhoushan Park. Here. From a distance, while still parking, Chen-Wen heard someone calling him, following the direction of the sound and looking over there. 2 men and 1 woman were waving and shouting at his back. Here. Chen-Wen also waved his hand in response, pointing to his bicycle and gesturing for them to park their car and go over. Lock the bike, afraid they won't be able to wait, Chen-Wen ran over. Chen, why are you only here now? I called you a long time ago. There was something going on just now. Zhou Daxiong looked at Chen-Wen walking by and complained casually, but when he said something was wrong, he didn't have enough hesitation. Come on, brother Chen, let's go boating. Quickly, Zhou Daxiong returned to normal and continued speaking heartlessly. He stepped forward to pull Chen-Wen and wanted to move forward. Pop. A crisp sound of physical contact echoed in the air. Immediately afterwards, a sharp female voice rang out. Xiongde, you brainless fool, can you care more about others? Didn't you see that Chen-Wen and Meng Jie still have something to say? Speaking, he turned the hand he had just slapped at Zhou Daxiong and pointed it at Chen-Wen and Su Mengjie, who were staring at each other tightly. He looked at Zhou Daxiong with a hint of resentment. What's wrong with this? Why are you hitting me at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com? Holding on to the spot where Wang Qianya had just slapped him, Zhou Daxiong showed dissatisfaction on his face and looked at her with grievances. He weakly opened his mouth and spoke softly. You're still talking about me, you're so rude and unreasonable, you're just a crazy woman. What are you saying? Wang Qianya was like a fox with its fur blown up, staring fiercely at Zhou Daxiong, rolling up her lace sleeves and pointing at him. I wished I could come up and give Zhou Daxiong a second glance, but I glanced at my best friend and Chen-Wen next to me and then gouged out Zhou Daxiong again. You. What are you? If you're told not to speak, don't speak. Zhou Daxiong saw Wang Qianya, who was usually difficult to provoke, get angry and didn't dare to speak anymore, so he had to curl his head up. Humph, good men don't fight against women. You. Chen-Wen, why are you looking at me like this? Do I have any flowers on my face? As soon as she walked over and looked at Chen Wen, Su Mingjie mustered up the courage to look at him, then shyly lowered her head. Chen Wen noticed that the girl's face had already turned red, like a ripe apple, and she walked in again. Chen Wen quietly saw that the blush on the girl's face was spreading towards her neck and behind her ears. Mingjie, I didn't hear what you just said clearly. Su Mingjie's voice was so low that it was like a mosquito. Chen Wen only heard the first few words, but the later ones became weaker and weaker. In the end, he couldn't hear them clearly at all. Nothing. Nothing. Upon hearing Chen Wen's words, Su Mingjie became even more panicked, her small head with a pair of ponytails swaying like a tambourine. How could I possibly capsize in Chapter 4? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the gentle breeze blew away a few moments of summer boredom. The girl's sideburns were also gently brushed up, and the tips of her hair danced in the air. When he came over from there just now, Chen Wen had been staring at the girl. Under the sunshine, the girl had beautiful black hair, which was very beautiful. From the side view, the girl's nose is also very beautiful, with a high and straight bridge, as if she has the bloodline of northerners. A little blush rose on the girl's fair face, and her shy expression was even more charming. Chen Wen couldn't help but want to take a bite. In that case, such a beautiful girl should cry. For a moment, a little stunned, Chen Wen thought of it with a wicked interest. Why are you blushing so much? Are you running a fever? Should I take you to the hospital for a check? Up. Seeing Su Mingjie's shy expression, Chen Wen thought of teasing her. Long time no see, it seems like the same feeling as before. No, I'm fine. I don't need to go to the hospital. Su Mingjie still lowered her head, swayed her head, shy and hesitant to speak. Do you miss me? Chen Wen pursued with victory, looking at Su Mingjie's soft and sticky appearance, and wished he could pinch her twice. Woo! Chen Wen, what are you doing? We've been waiting here for a long time, but when you come, you bully Meng Jie. On the side, Wang Qianya, who was originally looking at her with a smile on her face, suddenly put her hands on her hips. She pouted and stared fiercely at Chen Wen, pulling Su Mingjie behind her. Humph. She was really angry and snorted heavily at Chen Wen. Just now, when she saw Chen Wen slowly watching his good friend Meng Jie walk over, she thought it was because he was going to confess to his best friend after the college entrance exam today. As a result, I didn't expect this guy to be so bad and start bullying Mingjie, which made her angry. Don't you have anything to say to Mingjie today? Do you think she's dressed so beautifully today? Wang Qianya was still questioning Chen Wen. She felt that she had been blind before and even thought this guy was worthy of her good friend. What do you want to say? Chen Wen lowered his head and began to ponder. The remaining three of them had already turned their gaze to him, even Su Mingjie, who was shy and lowered her head, looked eagerly at Chen Wen. Zhou Daxiong, who has always had a dull mind and is not very opened-up-minded, also saw a hint. Chen Wen lifted his head again and looked at the girl in front of him. The girl has a slender and delicate figure, fair and delicate skin, porcelain white and smooth, a delicate cherry-like face, and soft long hair flowing over her shoulders. Her eyebrows and eyes are picturesque, with bright and clear eyes. When she is shy, her drooping eyelids emit a shy light. She was wearing a knee-length chiffon skirt, with a thin layer of pale white stockings covering her slender calves, and a pair of shiny silver slim high heels. In the afternoon, the sunlight shone through the sparse leaves on both the man and the woman. Butterflies danced gracefully in the air, swirling around them, and the surrounding air was filled with the fragrance of flowers. In this moment, the four eyes met and intertwined, as if crossing time and space. Chen Wen's eyes became moist, and his heart seemed to be moved. Such a good girl, I should have let her down in my past life. It's really not something. However, even though there were many things in his heart that he wanted to say, Chen Wen hesitated for a long time and ultimately did not say them. He has both his concerns and his sense of responsibility. Looking at the clear gaze of the girl in front of him, Chen Wen's mouth opened and closed several times before slowly speaking. Mengjie, wait a little longer. I know what you mean, but I want to wait and talk. I don't want to repeat that sentence in the most irresponsible tone at this most helpless age. Staring closely into Su Mengjie's eyes, Chen Wen said seriously. Let's do it again. He doesn't want to casually make the most important promises in life. Can you give me some more time? Okay, I'll wait for you. At this moment, Su Mengjie's heart was also in turmoil, and she didn't expect Chen Wen to say so. As expected by her and Wang Qianya before, it was her who would confess to Chen Wen. Both of them felt that a straight man like Chen Wen would not want to go up there. So, Su Mengjie, who has always been shy and prone to blushing, made this decision. On the other hand, Wang Qianya, who was waiting to eat melons, also opened her eyes wide. She didn't think why things would go up like this. It was totally unexpected for her and her good sisters. Chen Wen surprisingly spoke up. Upon hearing this, Su Mengjie was even more shy, her face covered in a cherry-like bright blush. Mengjie, let's go boating. Without waiting for Su Mengjie to continue speaking, Chen Wen extended his right hand and placed it in front of Su Mengjie, inviting her to go boating. Rowing was something they had already agreed upon, and it was also one of the most famous recreational activities in Zhoushan Park. The price is not very expensive. It costs 5 yuan and a half hours. 2 people have a boat, and for 4 people, playing for half an hour only costs 10 yuan. Although their families are not very wealthy, they still have money for occasional visits. After just hesitating for a moment, Su Mengjie pouted and placed her soft and smooth hand on Chen Wen's hand. Well, let's go. After speaking, the 4 of them walked towards the largest lake in Zhoushan Park. Swan Lake. Oh, Chen Wen, you drive slowly, be careful not to capsize. Sitting next to Chen Wen, Su Mengjie exclaimed in surprise, urging Chen Wen to slow down the boat. No way, Mengjie. Look, Zhou Daxiong and Wang Qianya are about to catch up. Quick, quick, aim the faucet at them. Artillery. Su Mengjie, listen to the order, fire. Chen Wen exclaimed excitedly, I don't know how long it has been since he experienced these days of playing and frolicking with 3 or 5 friends in the park. It's not easy to play once, you must be a bit reckless and give him a good time to play. I still have a vague impression. Chen Wen remembers that in her previous life, Su Mengjie confessed to herself when she was about to return home. Before this, when playing around, it seemed like I was on the same boat as Zhou Daxiong, with 2 girls, Su Mengjie and Wang Qianya, sitting together. After what had just happened in his life, Chen Wen became bold. When Zhou Daxiong wanted to run to his boat, he drove him off and then led Su Mengjie onto the boat. Zhou Daxiong went to sit with Wang Qianya in order to save money. Chen Wen did this not only to sit with Su Mengjie, but also for the sake of his good brother. I, who grew up playing since childhood, may be slower in terms of emotions than myself, but I am not bad-looking and my academic performance is average. So, when she was in school, there were also many girls who liked it. Chen Wen remembered that because the 4 of them often played together, Wang Qianya was a bit fond of Zhou Daxiong. However, neither he nor Zhou Daxiong felt it. In their previous lives, they were also together when they were in college. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long, and they didn't spend much time together. They often argued and had some conflicts over Chen Wen and Su Mengjie. In addition, both of them refused to take a step back for the sake of their friends, so they ended up breaking up with each other on Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Later, when he went home to hold a funeral for his parents, Chen Wen seemed to have heard that both of them were almost 30 years old and seemed to have not gotten married yet. Chen Wen has always felt guilty about this matter. Now, with the opportunity to make up for it, he still wants to quickly match it up. Xiongde, hurry up, Mengjie and the others are all going far away. The distance between my water guns and cannons is not enough, and even the water cannot nourish them. On the other hand, Wang Qianya was urging Zhou Daxiong to drive faster and make her catch up. At this moment, under the sunshine, everyone's faces were filled with youthful smiles, and silver bell-like laughter echoed through their hearts. No, Chen Wen, please slow down the speed quickly. I feel like the boat is about to capsize. After a series of shots and the bumpy operation of the small boat by Chen Wen, Su Mengjie finally lost her energy and leaned against the right side of the boat, panting heavily. The white and tender nose was also infected with redness, and fine beads of sweat emerged from the snow-white forehead. Okay, let me have the last drift again. After playing non-stop for over 20 minutes, even at the age of 18, which is the most energetic age, Chen Wen couldn't resist it. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, Chen Wen pressed the accelerator tightly and turned the steering wheel of the small boat. Turn around at a very high speed. Woohoo! Chen Wen had already shouted excitedly, and Su Mengjie beside her was also full of joy in her eyes. The usually quiet girl, after playing with Chen Wen for half a day, is also very exciting and enjoyable. Ah, be careful. Suddenly, Chen Wen sensed something was wrong and the ship seemed to be overturning. Pop it. Pop it. Chapter 5, Chapter 1. Preliminary Ideas for a Barrel of Gold. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, there's not enough time to react. Under the tremendous centrifugal force, Chen Wen and Su Mengjie were thrown out. Following the direction of the ship's capsizing, it fell into the water. Ah bah, falling into the water, Chen Wen quickly surfaced, exposing his head and spitting heavily outside. Damn it, it's a disaster. Feeling pale on his face, Chen Wen no longer dared to look at Su Mengjie. After finally coming out to play, I even dropped her into the water and capsized the boat. Beside him, Su Mengjie also reacted quickly and quickly surfaced after the initial panic. As soon as she opened her eyes, Su Mengjie stared at Chen Wen, really infuriating her. Falling into the water, Su Mengjie was all wet. The originally shiny double ponytails were now hanging down on her forehead, and a few disobedient strands of hair were inserted into Su Mengjie's mouth. Humph, look at what you've done. I'm already wet all over now. The water is so dirty, it's all your fault. Falling into the water, Su Mengjie was also a bit angry. It was all because Chen Wen didn't listen to her just now, insisted on driving the boat so fast, and even wanted to play drift. You're still called Chen Wen, I think it's more like calling it Chen Monkey. Su Mengjie had a pair of beautiful eyes with anger, her willow eyebrows slightly curved, no longer the shy appearance she had before, and she blamed Chen Wen. Ah, this. Scratching his head, Chen Wen was also very embarrassed. He really overestimated just now. There's no way, I haven't experienced this kind of fun for too many years, so I'm still with the girl I used to love the most. If he was the only one who fell into the water, it wouldn't be a big deal. The key is that Su Mengjie also fell along and got soaked through. Mengjie, I'm sorry, I haven't been so happy for a long time. I suddenly forgot to play. Facing Su Mengjie's fierce gaze, Chen Wen said with a guilty heart. Why don't we go up first? Look, Zhou Daxiong and Wang Qianya have all come over. Chen Wen pointed to the other side, where two small boats were coming hungry. One belonged to the owner here, and when he saw the two of them falling into the water, he was afraid that they might have an accident. The other one was Zhou Daxiong and Wang Qianya. They also rushed over as soon as they saw Chen Wen and Su Mengjie capsizing. You see, if you still have the strength, go up. If not, I'll support you first and let you go up first. Fortunately, both of them can swim and don't wear many clothes in summer. They can still float on the water and wait for others to come. Chen Wen had already swam to Su Mengjie's side, and he felt that the girl's body was trembling slightly now. I think I was scared just now and haven't recovered yet. Wearing a snow-white chiffon skirt tightly pressed against Su Mingjie's fair and smooth skin, the girl's delicate face was wet, with a few crystal-clear tears hanging on it, and her eyes turned red. It's all your fault, you bad guy. Seeing Chen Wen getting closer and closer to her, Su Mingjie, who was already scared, threw herself directly onto him, wrapped her hand around Chen Wen's neck, and said with tears in her eyes. Two white and tender little fists were also fiercely tapping on Chen Wen's chest, venting his dissatisfaction. Woo-woo, Chen Wen struggled to splash in the water, trying to calm Su Mingjie's frightened emotions, but suddenly felt a bit overwhelmed. It can be seen that Su Mingjie was indeed startled by him just now. It was his fault. It's okay, Mingjie. Look at Zhou Daxiong and his team coming over soon. With his feet pawing in the water, Chen Wen held Su Mingjie in his arms, and Su Mingjie had already buried her head in Chen Wen's chest. In the water, the two people are tightly together. Under the choking sensation, Chen Wen felt the trembling of her delicate body in her arms, gently patting Su Mingjie's back to calm the girl's mood as soon as possible. Come on, grab this swimming ring. Quickly, the shop owner who was familiar with water rushed over and saw Chen Wen and his companions in the water, not sinking. He breathed a sigh of relief and threw them in a swimming circle. However, due to the small size of the ship, the two of them could only board one. In the end, under Chen Wen's comfort, he supported Su Mingjie and with the help of the boss's wife, lifted her up to the cabin like a frightened little rabbit. Aren't you coming up? After going up, Su Mingjie watched as Chen Wen put down his hand and grabbed the swimming ring, which was a bit strange. I won't be able to board anymore. This boat is too small to accommodate 3 people, and even if I get on, it's not easy for me to balance and easily capsize. I'll just swim from here to the shore. Nodding his head, indicating that he wouldn't go up, Chen Wen then propped up his hands and exerted a strong force on his waist. Gudong, put the swimming ring directly around your waist. You guys go up first, I'll be up right away. Seeing Su Mingjie's mouth open and wanting to say something, Chen Wen directly declined. It's a bit hard to swim back on my own, but it's still better to avoid capsizing the boat and causing Su Mingjie to fall into the water again after getting on board. That's not very good. Waving his hand, Chen Wen turned his head and swam straight towards the shore. Mingjie, are you okay? Upon landing, Chen Wen quickly ran to Su Mingjie, took off his shirt, and asked her to put it on the outside. He asked if there was anything wrong with her and if there were any uncomfortable areas on her body. If you're feeling unwell, let's go to the hospital first. Chen Wen looked at Su Mingjie with a worried expression, afraid that something might happen to her. I have nothing to do, it's you. Did you catch a cold when you swam back from that water just now? The gentle breeze blew away, carrying a few drops of water from Su Mingjie's hair. I don't mind. Chen Wen shook his head. He felt that his body was much better now. If he had been in his 30s or 40s in his previous life, he might have developed some problems. Let's go back first. Your clothes are so wet that we can't play anymore. Looking at Su Mingjie's skirt, which was still dripping with water, Chen Wen said. Okay, let's go back first. With her lips pouting, Su Mingjie felt a bit regretful. After finally freeing herself, she wanted to come out and have a trip, but unfortunately, such a mishap happened. Her luck was a bit unlucky. It's all you stinky rascal who made me unable to play. Humph, you must compensate me next time. The clothes on her body were all wet, and Su Mingjie was not angry either, just with a slight hint of temper. Zhaoshuyuan.com. Okay, I'll treat you to dinner in 2 days, Chen Wen scratched his head and apologized. Not in 2 days, just the day after tomorrow, my mother said she will take me to the Taoist temple to put on a pillar of incense and pray for better grades. Upon hearing this, Chen Wen felt lost in thought. He remembered that at this time, most ordinary people still had some superstitions. Especially when something happens that is related to their children, even if they don't believe in it, they will go to stick incense and buy a statue for some psychological comfort. He still remembers that his second aunt seemed to have donated a lot of public morality money to him in the temple, and even released small animals worth hundreds of yuan, hoping to do well in his college entrance examination. So Su Mingjie's mother took her to incense, which is also the same meaning. Yes, Chen Wen's mind flashed with a flash of inspiration. I can fully take advantage of the opportunity just after the college entrance examination to make a small fortune and make some money to prepare for buying demolished houses in the future. In Chen Wen's impression, the people in Qingshui County hold an attitude of believing in the existence of Wenqu in Confucius in traditional Chinese culture, rather than believing in the absence. Unlike those chaotic celestial beings who have high vigilance and are not very convinced. After all, in this era, reading grades can indeed be a guarantee for a family, at least it can make their own lives better. A culture that has been passed down for 5,000 years cannot be changed in a short period of time. So. Holding his chin, Chen Wen stared at Su Mingjie's delicate face. As long as we start from this point, we can make money. Chapter 6. Wit Temptation and Pink Tax. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, what's making money? What are you talking about? Su Mingjie's gentle and melodious voice, like a lark, sounded in Chen Wen's ears. Ah, what? Chen Wen almost didn't react and was startled. He looked forward and realized that he was still in front of Su Mingjie. It's nothing, Mingjie. I was just thinking if you're feeling unwell, should we go to the hospital to see? However, his reaction has always been quick, and he immediately changed the topic. He doesn't want to continue talking about this now. Let's wait until the time comes to learn more about it ourselves. I really don't have anything to do. I don't need to go to the hospital, but I'm all wet and I still need to go home and change my clothes. Su Mingjie's fair and tender forehead furrowed slightly, indicating that the wet clothes on her body made her very uncomfortable. Then I'll take you back first. I'll ride my bike faster, and you can sit in the back seat. After thinking for a moment, Chen Wen looked at Su Mingjie and asked. But, upon hearing Chen Wen's words, Su Mingjie extended her jade-white fingers and pointed to Chen Wen's upper body. You gave me your clothes, and now you're not wearing any clothes. It's okay, am I a big man? What's the big deal? Chen Wen lowered his head and only then noticed that he was only wearing pants, and the top had just been put on by Su Mingjie. In his eyes, there was an uncontrollable sense of pride, and his heart was particularly happy. He hadn't noticed before, but Chen Wen only saw it now. In my lower abdomen, there are 6 sharp abdominal muscles, and the muscle lines of my arms are also very beautiful, with clear contours and prominent textures. Stinky thug. Su Mingjie's coquettish scolding came from her ear, and Chen Wen swayed in front of her for a long time without wearing a shirt. As she looked up, what caught her eye was Chen Wen's abdominal muscles, not to mention covering them up, which made the little girl's face and ears red. Due to shyness, Su Mingjie spat lightly and blushed, then lowered her head. However, I couldn't help but secretly look up and take a glance over there. Hee, you little girl, really. If you want to watch it, just watch it openly. I don't charge you for the viewing fee. Seeing Su Mingjie becoming shy again, Chen Wen deliberately teased and said, hee, making Su Mingjie even more shy. Humph, I'm not looking at you, you stinky thug. Upon hearing Chen Wen making fun of her, Su Mingjie blushed and turned her head away, looking at the other side, pretending to ignore Chen Wen. Why is this girl so teasing? She blushed after just a few words, she hadn't noticed it before. Chen Wen inwardly slandered, and the corner of his mouth curved slightly. Let's start over again, there's still great time, infinite opportunities, and by the way, I can still tease the girl I like, how comfortable it is. The sunlight shone through the sparse clouds and onto the grassland, as well as onto Su Mingjie's face and body. This beautiful face did not become unsightly at all due to getting wet, but instead added a touch of charm. Well, Chen thought for a moment, in current words, it's pure desire, pure and lustful, with a hint of temptation in it, which is a charm that all men cannot resist. Yes, pure desire. I didn't fall into Su Mingjia's delicate face, which was shining with sunlight and could be shattered by a blow. Chen Wen has discovered another key point, which is, pure desire. That's right, it's pure desire. In Chen Wen's impression, the trend of pure desire should have only become popular under the influence of a certain internet celebrity named Jingchuan Carp. At that time, it instantly ignited the entire clothing industry and broke women's dissatisfaction with those unattractive clothes for so many years. As soon as you go out, you can see the streets and alleys filled with beautiful women wearing various pure and lustful styles of clothing. Those clothing manufacturers online, even if they have the same style, as long as they display a pure desire sign, their sales will directly soar. According to a report previously learned by Chen Wen, it can be learned that in that year, many clothing companies made a lot of money in this new feast. There were 1 or 2 clothing factories that almost closed down due to poor management, which brought them back to life and forced them to renew their lives for a long time. This is also a joke. Chen Wen silently remembered this in his heart. In the morning, he saw the simple T-shirt his mother was wearing with the font, BJ, come on. He had a little idea, but it wasn't until now that he understood what his inspiration was. That is the licking dog economy, that harvested the national economy for nearly 20 years and the pink tax that has a long history in China's 50-100-year history. These two are basically the same, which is to guide women to spend money and guide men to spend money for women. In this era, the relationship between men and women is still very simple, and most women are of the virtuous wife and mother type, not as many quirky as in later generations. So, there are huge economic effects inherent in this, and if utilized well, achieving wealth freedom is still relatively easy. Chen Wen clenched his fists tightly and said, "The big waves are washing away the sand. The opportunity is already in front of me, it depends on whether I can seize it." Chen Wen, you haven't even listened to me." Suddenly, Chen Wen felt pushed twice. Returning to her senses, Su Mingjia's melancholic gaze greeted Chen Wen. The girl pouted and looked up at him with an unhappy expression on her face. "I've been telling you for a long time, but you haven't replied to me a word. Just now, I was suddenly stunned by your peerless appearance, Mingjia. I fell directly into it, unable to extricate myself, and did not recover." Chen Wen looked into Su Mingjia's eyes and said seriously. "Really?" Su Mingjia's eyes were shining, her heart was already filled with joy. "It's necessary." Patted his chest, Chen Wen said firmly. Girls like to listen to some nice things, and their favorite thing is when others praise them. Whenever someone praises them, most of the time, they will selectively forget what happened just now and start to develop beautiful narcissism. Let's go first, so as not to catch a cold when the wind blows. The sun in June is not as hot as in July and August, and the chill of spring has not completely dissipated. Wet body, once the wind blows, sometimes it can still be quite cold. Worried that Su Mingjia might catch a cold, Chen Wen thought of sending her back as soon as possible, taking a shower, and changing clothes. There will be more opportunities to come out and play in the future, so don't be in a hurry for so long. Let's go then. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Tightening her clothes, Su Mingjia nodded. However, in a place that Chen Wen couldn't see, her small mouth also secretly pursed. Sitting in Chen Wen's car later, do you want to hug his waist and lean against his back like in the movie? Su Mingjia quietly looked up and glanced at Chen Wen's well-defined back, and couldn't help but swallow her saliva. How shy. Su Mingjia, you can't do this, it's only bad girls who think about it. Su Mingjia forced herself not to think, but as soon as she looked up, she could see the streamlined muscles on Chen Wen's body, and her heart was beating wildly. Da Xiong, take Qianya and have fun for a while. I'll take Mengjie back to change clothes first. Remember to take good care of Qianya and have her take her back after dinner tonight. Holding on to Zhou Daxiong's back, Chen Wen whispered, but it happened to make Wang Qianya hear him. This is one of the few hints he can give his brothers, and Chen Wen tried to match them up. Turning her head to look at Wang Qianya, she pretended not to hear her and was chatting with Su Mengjie. However, her erect ears and tilted body still betrayed her. There's a play. Seeing her appearance, she didn't refuse. For this carefree girl, it was indeed rare. Chen Wen was secretly pleased that as long as Wang Qianya didn't reject her, he could have 10,000 ways to teach Zhou Daxiong to pursue her. Qianshan, you and Zhou Daxiong are playing here for now. Chen Wen and I will leave first. Goodbye, Mengjie, remember to pay attention to safety on the road. Goodbye, Daxiong, make sure to take care of Qianya and take her to eat something delicious and have fun. Chapter 7, Bucket 1. Gold Open. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, under the dazzling noon sun, Chen Wen rode his bike naked with his shirt on. His strong and compact body lines were revealed, and his skin exuded a healthy youthful radiance. Under the sunlight, he appeared even more energetic. Behind him, on the back seat of his bicycle, sat a beautiful girl with a blushing face, hugging Chen Wen's waist, her head almost buried together. The speed is not very fast, but occasionally there is a refreshing summer breeze blowing by. Under the breeze, the girl's wet skirt was also lifted by the gentle breeze, revealing her graceful figure. Chen Wen's solid shoulders provided Su Mengjie with a sense of stability and security. He gently leaned forward, with the corners of his mouth slightly upturned, revealing a sense of happiness and love. The girl slowly lowered her eyelids, her cheeks slightly red, sometimes looking up ahead, sometimes sideways at Chen Wen, and there was a tacit understanding and sweetness between the two. Mengjie, how do you think you did on the exam? Riding the bike, Chen Wen was afraid that Su Mengjie would be a bit bored, so he asked for help. He vaguely remembers that both he and Su Mengjie performed exceptionally well in this college entrance examination. He was originally a non-double first-class student, but in the end, with a little bit of luck, he got many questions right and successfully crossed the threshold of 610 points. He went to a decent 211 university and studied computer science. Of course, this also lays the foundation for the days when liver code will explode every day in the future. As for Su Mengjie, it goes without saying that she passed the 660-point mark directly and barely crossed the score line of Qingbei in that year. Finally, after several choices, Su Mengjie still chose to go to Imperial University. The best university in the hearts of the people of the whole country, go there to realize her dream. I feel like I did pretty well in the exam. Although the questions were difficult this time, there were no very biased or strange ones. Overall, I was able to do them. Hugging Chen Wen's waist, Su Mengjie's upturned mouth was like a crescent moon, and her two small dimples made people want to poke her. And the most crucial thing is. As she spoke, Su Mengjie's voice suddenly became light and lively, with a clear hint of excitement in her tone. If Chen Wen turned his head at this moment, he could see Su Mengjie's slightly expanded pink nose wings. I asked teacher Zhao those questions before the exam and happened to get a similar result. Congratulations, Mengjie, your luck is really good. Chen Wenwei pursed his lips slightly. In his past life, it was the same. Otherwise, with Su Mengjie's strength, it would still be difficult to enter the Imperial University. Chen Wen, which university do you want to go to? After a period of adaptation, Su Mengjie constantly swayed up and down on Chen Wen's bicycle, leaning her upper body against Chen Wen's back. As soon as Chen Wen spoke, he felt a warm sensation in his back, with a damp airflow passing by. I haven't figured it out yet. Let me think about it first. What about you? It's not that Chen Wen doesn't want to say it, it's that he hasn't figured it out yet. In his previous life, he attended an agricultural school where he studied computer science. But now, as he has filled out his application again, he has new ideas and doesn't really want to go to the previous university. On the way over, he had already carefully considered and should be able to do business in the future. With decades of experience gained through his travels, he learned about every significant change that occurred in later generations. To be honest, as long as he has a certain amount of capital, making money in the coming time is not difficult. What he is still hesitating about is which university he wants to go to. This year, with his scores, the most he can attend are the old 211 or some obscure majors in 985 universities. At present, there are only 3 schools that Chen Wen is particularly interested in. Moda University of Finance and Economics, Daida University of Finance and Economics, and Daida University of Posts and Telecommunications. The first 2 are that he wants to learn some knowledge about finance and business management. The latter is one of the most renowned universities among his group of veteran 211 universities, known for its computers. In fact, for him, going there to study didn't help much, and not to mention his past life, he was just a computer novice. It can be said that finance and business management can be learned anywhere. However, what Chen Wen needs is contacts. When he enters the university or society, his alumni will be one of the most important sources of contacts for him as a small town swat. Chen Wen, why do these cicadas like to call so much? Aren't they tired? Although it's Meng Xia, the cicadas have started calling non-stop now. If a man calls twice like them, he can marry a wife, probably even more ferocious than they call. Thinking of the various young people in later generations who did not get married, did not fall in love, and some strange things he encountered during his own blind dates, Chen Wen half-jokingly sighed. Disgusting. Feeling that Chen Wen was teasing herself again, Su Mengjie swung her small powder fist and hit Chen Wen on the back. Oh, what are you doing? Can you drive slowly? Why do you keep shaking so much? Hee hee. Upon hearing these words, Chen Wen's mouth curved to the tip of his ear, but of course, it was intentional. Along the way, he walked under the shade of a big tree, looking for a book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Stepping over the fallen leaves, he rode with ups and downs, specifically looking for unstable places to pass by. The purpose is all men, everyone understands. I'll go up and return your clothes. You should go back and change your clothes quickly to avoid catching a cold. Standing by the car, Su Mengjie took off Chen Wen's T-shirt, handed it to Chen Wen, and reminded him. If you go back like this, your parents won't talk about you, will they? Chen Wen was a bit worried, afraid that Su Mengjie would be told by her parents if she went back wet. It's okay, my parents are still working, and now I'm the only one at home. Just quietly finish it. Okay, goodbye, see you the day after tomorrow. Chen Wen casually draped his semi-wet clothes over his shoulder and waved to Su Mengjie. Goodbye. After bidding farewell, Chen Wen returned home and quickly took a shower while his parents were away. At the same time, he washed his clothes and hung them on the balcony. Subsequently, Chen Wen ran into the study. Now I have a total of 2,300 yuan, which is also my only original capital that must be used on the cutting edge. With a furrowed brow, Chen Wen turned the ballpoint pen in his hand. Underneath was a blank piece of paper, which was now filled with densely packed notes, most of which were messy. Obviously, Chen Wen's thoughts were also chaotic and he had not fully figured them out. The only thing we can do now is this one. Chen Wen picked up the ballpoint pen in his hand and circled the messy handwriting in the pile of notes. This is the most suitable project for him to earn his first bucket of gold, which he has carefully considered and based on his current financial resources and estimated strength. Chapter 8. Wenqu Star Descends to Earth, Confucius Lives. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, that's the one I thought of before, selling anxiety. That's right, Chen Wen wants to take this opportunity to sell a wave of anxiety and complete the original accumulation of his capital. Otherwise, with his current 1 or 2,000 yuan, he wouldn't be able to do anything at all. I can't even cross the threshold to enter that industry if I want to do business. Since the goal has been set, the rest is to go and complete it. Chen Wen paused his pen and looked at the line of words on the paper, lost in thought. Where exactly should we start? Chen Wen has never been very familiar with this field, and in his past life, he only began to see people selling literary and musical star tags, Confucius posters, and sculptures in the past 15 years. At the beginning, it led a trend on their side. Parents and students who have just finished the college entrance examination like to buy these things. As long as the seller claims to have gone to Tsufu, the hometown of Confucius, for a special trip, basically no one will refuse, and they are quickly snatched away. Chen Wen also had a cousin who graduated from the college entrance examination that year. At that time, his uncle and aunt bought a palm-sized, illuminated statue of Confucius Wenqu Xing, which cost 400 to 500 yuan. It really scared Chen Wen, who had only been working for 2 years at that time. However, Chen Wen learned that later on, this kind of thing became much less common and the price could not be sold. The reason behind this is still the development of the internet, which has allowed people to learn a lot of knowledge from it, and it is not as easy to be deceived as before. I know these are just some sales tactics made by scammers to make money. However, in the summer of 2009, let alone the internet, even mobile phones are not available in ordinary families. So, it's not a problem for Chen Wen to make some money through this. There's no need to worry about the production channel, it's also convenient. What requirements should these templates be made according to? Sitting at the desk, Chen Wen frowned tightly. In terms of channels, he still has some connections, and there is a Zhaojia town in Qingshui County that is similar to Jingdezhen. The difference is that this Zhaojia town specializes in printing and carving. In fact, at the beginning, it was not a small town, but a factory. However, later on, the factory gradually expanded, and many new factories were built around it. Some of those workers came with their families. In addition, there are more and more vendors who come here to sell goods due to the high traffic here. Over time, it has now become a collection of industrial factories similar to a small town. Pushi, taking a deep breath, Chen Wen suddenly burst out laughing. He found himself trapped in a misconception, which is why he had to do these sculpture modeling and sticker printing himself. He is the father of Party A, just go there and make a request. There are so many factories, and whoever can do it will do it for them. If one doesn't do it, there are many factories. Even if it's troublesome to make money, no one will refuse. How do you feel? A bit like a capitalist? Chen Wen sneered. I still have 2,300 yuan, which should be enough to cover the upfront expenses. At that time, I can only pay a portion of the deposit first. After selling the goods, I can go and pay the final payment to someone else. However, Chen Wen frowned and took out all the money in his pocket, counting it again. In that case, first I need to find a boss who is willing to only pay the deposit, take the goods, and sell them before paying the final payment. After counting the money again, Chen Wen finally breathed a sigh of relief. There was no problem with the amount of money. Just went out to play, it was really close. If it weren't for him putting the money his mother gave him in his bicycle pocket when he went out, the 1,000 yuan would have been gone. That would be like dying before graduation, with half of the startup funds reduced. In terms of future value, Chen Wen counted with his fingers and said, well, it's probably half of his company's market value in the future. This. It seems that we need to be more careful in the future, and we also need to be more cautious when doing things. Chen Wen secretly warned himself in his heart that being steady is not cowardly. Be careful to sail a ship that will last for thousands of years. He has been reborn and should not be discovered by others. We need to go on a field investigation, we need to hurry up. Put the money away, and Chen Wen is ready to go to Zhaojia town to take a look. He is not very familiar with that area, and his only understanding is through hearsay from other people. He still remembers his father, who once told him during a meal that Zhaojia town is now very desolate, and many manufacturers are in a semi-operational state, with little income. The economic benefits of the factory are very poor. If it weren't for the habit of managing food in major factories, those workers might not have been able to eat and run away long ago. At that time, old Chen Chuan had a worried expression on his face, and when he talked about it, he looked worried and worried. By the way, I forgot to mention that Lao Chen is a general section chief at the Human Resources and Social Security Bureau of Qingshui County. I don't have any hobbies on weekdays, I just enjoy fishing and live a very leisurely life. Thanks to this, Chen Wen has been living a decent life from memory onwards. Although Lao Chen has always had a clean slate, their family's living standards are still above the average. If it weren't for the fact that since Chen Wen graduated from university, his family has been plagued by bad things and he could have lived a very happy life. This time, we must not let our parents have any more accidents. As for the elderly in our family, we should take them to the hospital as soon as we earn money. Otherwise, some illnesses will become more difficult to treat the longer they persist. Chen Wen silently calculated in his heart that if he regains the opportunity, not only himself, but also his family, their fate will change. Riding this long-used bicycle, Chen Wen's face showed a hint of bitterness. It's a 20.30-kilometer journey from his home to Zhaojia town, and there aren't any direct buses these days. Riding a bike will definitely exhaust him. Now, at the age of 18, his body is still very resilient, but he has not had this experience for decades. Before, I used to drive whenever I could, and ride a small electric donkey whenever I couldn't drive. It was very comfortable and didn't require much energy from myself. Zhaoshuyuan.com, forget it, hurry over tonight, gather some intelligence, and then find a place to stay overnight. Spend the whole day tomorrow to learn more. Since there is no other way, we can only choose to accept it. Young man, what are you doing here? A gatekeeper dressed in old camouflage clothes and holding a radio that occasionally emits noise stopped Chen Wen. Without being in a hurry to speak, Chen Wen took a few breaths. This dilapidated mountain road is really exhausting him. The road is full of potholes and potholes. He rode quickly in order to arrive earlier, and his buttocks are numb now. Especially since I've been wandering around this town for quite a while now, I've asked several factories. However, everything was not satisfactory, so he did not sign the contract. Park the car and lock it. Chen Wen supported the wall and took a few deep breaths before getting better. Grandpa, is this Hantong printing factory over here? Is your factory still accepting orders? I need a batch of goods. Chen Wen came straight to the point and glanced at the inside of the factory building. It can be seen that it looks like it has been deserted for a long time inside. Weeds are overgrown, and some people's calves are getting taller. There is no movement of any machines in those large factories, only two shedding Chinese pastoral dogs basking in the sun in the yard. Chen Wen sighed and estimated that this company had run away for nothing. It seems like they have been shut down for a long time, and whether there is still equipment in the factory is a question of two. Goods. The gatekeeper was initially stunned when he heard it, but immediately smiled when he realized it. Take it, we're still taking orders now. How much do you think you want? Chapter 9. Inquiring about market trends. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the gatekeeper has been so busy lately that he finally managed to come with someone. Not only can I chat with myself for a while, but I can also bring business to the factory. I was so happy at once that I gasped for breath for half a day, almost unable to catch my breath. How much do you want? Chen Wen pondered for a moment and said, if it's just printing, we only need a few $100 poster, but we also need a batch of other products, such as sculptures or various figurines, both of which require a large amount. I'm not very clear about what you're talking about, but our factory can handle everything else. The gatekeeper thought for a while, but in the end, he couldn't figure out what Chen Wen was talking about. Being able to do these two is almost enough, the handmade ones are similar to sculptures. Okay, as long as you say so much, you can take it. I'll help you get in touch. As he spoke, the gatekeeper took out a mobile phone from his dark brown shoulder bag and said, "Dog egg, it's me. Your second uncle has come to make a poster and statue, and we need a considerable amount. Come and talk to him." "Yes, it's right at the entrance of the factory building. Can he come over now?" "Okay, I'll bring him over now." The gatekeeper hung up the phone, opened the door of the factory, led Chen Wen inside, and walked towards the nearest factory. "Come, young man, come with me." "Okay, thank you, sir." Chen Wen walked inside, as expected. In factories like this, the gatekeepers are usually relatives and elders of the factory director, and most of them are not simple. And just now, the old man called himself the second old man with a dog egg, which verified Chen Wen's idea. Thinking of this, Chen Wen couldn't help but laugh. This old man was actually using the nickname of the factory director, or something like a dog's egg and dog's leftover. As he walked inside, Chen Wen realized that this place seemed to have been abandoned for a long time. Many places were already covered in thick dust, and with a gentle slide of his hand, a clear mark appeared. No one came to clean up the crumbs of beer bottles that were casually discarded on the roadside. In this environment, Chen Wen shook his head and thought to himself that this trip was a waste. He still had to go to several other places to take a look later. "Hello, hello. May I ask if you want a batch of goods?" Before the gatekeeper could lead Chen Wen into the factory building, in the blink of an eye, a man with a chicken coop, bloodshot eyes, and a dejected face met him. The man stopped as soon as he saw Chen Wen and reached out his right hand to pass it to him. "Hello, I do need a batch of goods. Are you the factory manager here?" The sudden appearance of the person really startled Chen Wen. He reacted and simply shook hands with him. When shaking hands, Chen Wen could feel the man's hand shaking, and there were still wet droplets on it, indicating that he still valued this business. However, after a pause, Chen Wen glanced at the factory director and his factory again with some doubts. "Can you really produce it with quality and quantity? I see your factory has already shut down." "I can do it." The man, who looked very decadent, said urgently, as if afraid that Chen Wen would refuse. "I am the director of this Huaneng printing factory, Wang Jeffa. I don't know your name." "My surname is Chen, my name is Chen Wen." "Good name, good name. Mr. Chen sounds like a person who does big things. He is calm and steady. Mr. Chen is really young and promising." Chen Wen couldn't help but laugh and cry. Director Wang really went to the hospital in a hurry and didn't miss any chance. Judging from his youthful appearance, he came up with flattery to please him. If Chen Wen were really a young man of 18 or 19 years old, perhaps he would just fall for the trap of the factory director. However, Chen Wen shook his head. If it doesn't bring practical benefits, it really has no value at all. Anyone who has been in the society for a few years will say it, especially for someone like him who has been in sales for several years, he just opens his mouth and comes. Telling lies empty-handed and making a living out of death is also a passport that an adult can pass through in society. The statement that there is only profit in the adult world is absolutely correct. Director Wang is also in charge of such a large printing factory at such a young age, which is truly remarkable. Chen Wen walked back with a warm expression, and everyone carried the flower sedan chair. "I just don't know if Director Wang's factory can still start construction now. I have a lot of things to ask for, but it seems like your factory hasn't started construction for a long time. The road twists and turns, and the sunset has already come out." Chen Wen is too lazy to waste time on socializing and directly enters the main topic. "Of course it can be done. Our factory's production lines are still there, and we can do as much as you want, Mr. Chen. Chen Wen questioned Wang Jiafa, who quickly explained, patting his chest and making promises to Chen Wen. His expression was very nervous, and his eyes widened, staring closely at Chen Wen's location. Are all the production lines here? Chen Wen heard it a bit strange. If the factory went bankrupt due to poor management, he would not have a production line, and most of it would have been used to offset the debt. But it's strange that there aren't many workers in the factory, the machines aren't running, and no one outside is coming to collect debts, so the production line is still there. Director Wang, why hasn't your printing factory started? I've been here for so long and haven't heard the sound of the production line running. Well, there are some other factors, said the Wang family, with a frown on their face and a hint of displeasure in their eyes. Immediately, he felt relieved and looked at Chen Wen, making a gesture of invitation towards the small place that was called the reception room. Mr. Chen, why don't you go in and sit down first? Let's brew a cup of tea and slowly discuss the issue with your batch of goods. Line. Although he felt something was amiss, Chen Wen still walked into the reception room with the enthusiasm from the Wang family. Before coming here, he also went to several other printing factories. However, what surprised him was that the few printing factories he went to either didn't look up to his order of less than 10,000 yuan, or they saw him as young, thinking that the lion would speak up and fiercely slaughter him. Chen Wen is not as easily fooled by others as a novice child, and he did not believe what a few of them said. Their entire printing factory in Zhaojia town is at the same price, either accepting it or leaving, choosing to wander around. Mr. Chen, please have some tea. To Chen Wen's surprise, although the factory looked terrible from the outside and the director was also unkempt, the reception room was still very neat and clean inside. Thank you very much. I don't know what Mr. Chen has in mind. What kind of things do you want to do with us? What is the quantity? Chapter 10. Negotiating Cooperation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, what is the quantity? Taking a cup of tea handed over by the Wang family, Chen Wen didn't speak in a hurry. Looking at the tea leaves in the cup, they float like needles one by one, and the green leaves emit a faint fragrance, refreshing the heart and soul. Chen Wen took a small sip, and in an instant, a strong natural fragrance penetrated his spleen and stomach. Director Wang, this is good tea. Placing the tea cup on the table, Chen Wen looked at Wang Jiafa with a surprised expression on his face. He never expected that this factory, which was on the verge of closure, would still retain such good tea. The contrast was simply outrageous. Ah, Mr. Chen, you don't know anything about it. Back then, our Huaneng printing factory was also one of the most prestigious factories in this area. It can be said that it was one of the best. However, something happened later, and our Huaneng suddenly declined. Staring at the emerald green tea that Chen Wen had placed on the table, the Wang family was stunned, with a hint of regret and nostalgia in their eyes, as well as a hint of resentment. Immediately, he quickly put it away, hiding it very well. If it weren't for being a salesperson for a few years before becoming a full-time programmer in his previous life, he was very good at observing words and expressions, and probably wouldn't have noticed it. Mr. Chen, you can tell from my tea that our factory is good, right? Do you want to take a look inside the factory? The quality of our Huaneng printing factory has always been guaranteed. Wang Jiafa noticed that Chen Wen had not spoken about the goods and knew he was still a bit uneasy. He took the initiative to take Chen Wen to the several factories behind him to take a look. Huaneng printing factory has a total of 3 relatively large factories. 2 of them are workshops for printing, and another workshop is for modeling various sculptures. Chen Wen followed Wang Jiafa for a brief look and found that it was exactly what he had said. Apart from not being used for a long time and leaving behind a lot of dust and spider webs, everything else in the workshop was fine. The equipment is also quite new, but it's all covered in dust. Obviously, Huaneng Printing Factory hasn't received any orders for a long time. That's why the gatekeeper and factory manager Wang Jiafa were so surprised when they saw Chen Wen come to inquire. Director Wang, I think your equipment is quite complete, and they are all 50% new. It looks like it hasn't been used for a long time. This is also something that Chen Wen has always been curious about. Even though such a large factory area is in a state of shutdown, it is difficult not to be curious. This is a long story, it's a bit too complicated. Let's talk about it later when we have the opportunity. Wang Jiafa shook his head as if unwilling to mention it. Mr. Chen, now that you have read it, you also know our strength. Can you talk about your needs? Let's discuss it together. Okay, Chen Wen nodded and followed the Wang family towards the house, preparing to discuss the contract. In fact, he doesn't really care about what happened to this printing factory. As long as the production line is still there, he can produce something for him. After tinkering around for a while, Chen Wen was just being cautious to avoid being cheated out of his small amount of money, while also trying to suppress the price. Walking on the road, Chen Wen appeared calm and composed, while Wang Jiafa had already exposed his urgent needs before. So, this price can be lowered a bit. If you can save it, then save it. I need to print a batch of posters on your end, similar to Confucius' blessings and the descent of Wenqu Xing to the mortal world. The quantity does not need to be particularly large. In the early stage, 3,000 copies are enough, and later on, more may be needed depending on the situation. In addition, there is also a batch of figurines, which is quite complex, and the required quantity is not very large. In the early stage, it may only be 1,000 copies. Chen Wen spoke out what he wanted in one breath, and then looked at Wang Jiafa, waiting for him to speak. As expected by Chen Wen, upon hearing his words, Wang Jiafa's face immediately showed a displeased expression, with a conflicted expression on it. Feeling a bit uneasy, Chen Wen didn't know if the Wang family would agree to this quantity. After all, for such a large printing factory, such a small amount of things is indeed too few. However, Chen Wen also doesn't want to go to those roadside printing shops, which not only require high prices but also slow shipments. The most crucial thing is that he can't make handmade things like this. In Chen Wen's plan, handling these is the real profit point. Mr. Chen just said it's the early stage, which means there will be further needs in the later stage. After thinking for a while, Wang Jiafa looked at Chen Wen and asked. If only Chen Wen gang mentioned a small amount of goods, they can still make a profit by selling them at a 20% discount on the market price. However, excluding time and labor costs, there is not much profit to be made. I do have this idea. If this batch of goods sells well, I will place an order for the second batch, and the quantity of the goods in the later batches may double. Facing the questioning gaze of the Wang family, Chen Wen nodded. This is not that he is deceiving the Wang family, but that he does have this idea. This batch of goods is intended to be sold in the county town of Qingshui County. If it sells well, he will choose to continue selling in several counties and urban areas around Yi City. That way, there will be a relatively large supply of goods needed. Not to mention the 7 or 8 surrounding counties, the population of just one urban area is about 10 times that of Qingshui County, with a resident population of about 2 to 3 million. On their side, each county and city has a large population, belonging to the densely populated city. There are also 5 or 6 large gatherings with hundreds of thousands of people around them. So, as long as this thing can be sold in Qingshui County, the demand for it will not decrease. If that's the case, then we can only follow the market price for the first batch of goods. After all, the quantity is too small, and the loss caused by operating the machine once is significant. If there is still demand and a large quantity in the future, we can offer a cheaper price. Wang Jiafa pondered in his heart for a while before continuing to speak. It's not that he really wants to give Chen Wen a big discount, mainly because just now, Chen Wen has already seen the embarrassing situation of their factory. His anxious mentality was also clearly visible to Chen Wen. As a customer, Chen Wen is naturally not in a hurry at all, but as the nominal factory director, he is still extremely anxious in his heart. Zhaoshuyuan.com. He also knew that he would definitely be taken advantage of by Chen Wen. He could only say that he was still too young because of the things he had done before, and now he is not calm at all, and his work is impetuous. Sure, Chen Wen didn't bargain either. The quantity he requested for the first batch was not very large, and he was willing to follow the market price on the other side. If he didn't charge more, it would be considered good. Before coming, I met those few companies and wished he could double the market price, completely treating him as ignorant and easy to fool. As for the price reduction, this first batch of goods is too small and cannot be pressed much, and Chen Wen is too lazy to waste too much time talking. Okay, Mr. Chen, can you take a look at this price? The Wang family sent a clean white paper and calculated the prices according to the quantity mentioned by Chen Wen, writing them down on the paper. Taking the paper, Chen Wen carefully calculated it and found that it was still more than 30 yuan less than he had estimated. He estimated that Wang Jiafa had wiped out the rest for him. Sure. Okay, let's sign the contract then. Immediately, Chen Wen and Wang Jiafa signed a contract on this matter. Director Wang, just follow my instructions to make these things. The quality must be good, don't just make up the numbers. Finally, as the sky was getting dark, Chen Wen sent a few more reminders to the Wang family and prepared to ride home. At this point, if we hurry up, we might still be able to get home before 10 o'clock. Also, I need these things very urgently. I need them at the latest the day after tomorrow, so I must make them quickly. Time waits for no one. From the end of the college entrance examination to the release of results, there are only a few days in total. If we don't hurry up, we won't be able to enjoy the defense. Okay. The Wang family still wanted to persuade Chen Wen to stay here overnight, but with Chen Wen's repeated excuses, they had to give up.